people by their counsel, Mr. Walgren and Ms. Brazil. Dr. Shafer is again on the witness stand. All jurors and all alternates are present. To everybody, good morning. To jurors, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, thank you for your continued promptness and patience. Dr. Shafer, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Do you acknowledge, sir, you are still under oath and still sworn to tell the truth?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. This is a resumption of cross-examination by the defense. Mr. Chernoff, good morning.
Good morning, Judge.
Thank you.
Good morning, Dr. Shafer.
Good morning, Mr. Chernoff.
When we last spoke, we were talking about rapid bolus, I believe. I wanted to ask you some questions. You had mentioned that one of the dangers of a rapid bolus was apnea.
That is
one
correct.
Of the dangers. And in fact, in this FDA insert, which is marked as People's 212, and I realize I don't have the whole thing on here, all throughout. And by the way, this insert is an FDA insert, so all manufacturers of Propofol would have the same information. Is that right?
With the exception of the sulfite warning on some, that is correct.
We have.
Mr. Chernoff, could you do me a favor, because sometimes we have some audio problems. If you could get a little closer to the mic on the podium, that would help out.
Okay,
Thank you.
Judge, thank you.
Thank you.
Manufacturers of Propofol include Hospira, AstraZeneca. Do they still make it?
Hospira makes it. AstraZeneca sold their product to a company called APP Pharma, and they now make what used to be the AstraZeneca product.
And then Teva used to make it, right? Do they don't make it anymore? Or
Teva had manufacturing problems. They were shut down by the FDA, is my recollection, and I'm not sure if they're making it or not right now.
All right, let me mark this as Defense FF. The only difference between this Triple F, Judge. The only difference between this insert, I believe, Doctor, is that it's just larger print. But I'm going to show it to you. Throughout this insert, there are notations that are made that talks about problems, and I realize this is not. Let me see what I can do here. Am I doing something wrong here, Judge? All right, we'll talk about undesirable side effects here, such as cardiorespiratory depression, are likely to occur from bolus dosing or rapid increases in infusion rates. It warns of that in this insert. Is that right?
Yes.
And as we go down here, it further warns that slow infusion or slow injection techniques are preferable over rapid bolus administration, right?
Yes.
And I'm going to skip a bunch of it, but the bottom line is bear with me, Doctor. When discussing initiation of max sedation, it recommends slow infusion or slow injection techniques are recommended to avoid apnea or hypotension. Is that right?
Yes.
And when you were talking about why that was important, that's all the reasons that were listed in this insert are why it's important to avoid a rapid initiation of this particular drug. Is that right?
Yes.
Can you hear me okay, Judge?
No.
All right, let me
I'd
scoot
appreciate
over.
it. I know it may be a little bit distracting, but I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
The simulation that you prepared, the 25 milligram simulation that you prepared, I'm marking as GGG, Judge.
Triple golf.
You noted sure what's wrong with this thing here. Maybe the deputy can help me. I can't seem to get this thing
I
lower.
mean, you just want it centered?
No, that's not it. It's just not. It's not shrinking like it did on Friday.
Well, Deputy Jones will assist if he would. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Jones. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is a simulation that you prepared, right?
Yes.
This is a 25 milligram simulation. And you already testified that this simulates a rapid bolus,
Yes.
immediate bolus. You also prepared, can I have the 50 milligram, please? You also prepared a 50 milligram simulation, which you showed to the jury as well. You remember that?
Yes.
I'm going to mark that as HHH.
Triple Hotel.
There's two of them. There's one that's
Let me show you defense HHH. This is the 50 milligram that you prepared, right?
Yes.
And once again, it shows the immediate, initial rapid bolus initiation.
Yes.
Now, during your conversation with the jury, you said that you would expect to see an apnea under these circumstances. Is that right?
Yes.
Do you have your pointer, Dr. Shafer?
Here.
Okay. Can you show us at what point, I'm going to use this 50 milligrams, and then I'm going to go back to the 25, but I'd like you to show us at what point you would expect to see that apnea event?
Within the first 1 to 2 minutes, right in here.
Upon initiation, would be fair to say?
Yes, once the drug is into the brain, yes.
Mr. Chernoff, if you want, you can adjust the podium so that you don't have to move from your location, but we can hear you at the same time.
Like this?
Maybe
okay.
better.
Great. And let me show you the 25 milligrams. And by the way, for the record, you're pointing to about anywhere from between 0 and 2 minutes on this graph on the x-axis. Is that right?
Well, let's say 1 to 2.
Okay. And let me show you GGG, which is the 25 milligrams. And could you show us where you would expect to see this apnea event?
In the area of 2 minutes.
So
1 to 2 again.
So once again, pretty much upon initiation.
Yes.
And that's actually the experience that most anesthesiologists have, is that upon initiation of this anesthetic, apnea is a real danger, is a real possibility.
Yes.
I'm going to show you once again EEE. This is the simulation that you did for us, and once again, thank you for that.
Glad to.
And you did this a few days before you first started testifying for Dr. White. He asked you to do this. Is that right?
Yes.
And you used the same computer program that you had used for these other simulations.
An Excel spreadsheet, yes.
A spreadsheet. Okay. Now, in this particular circumstance, you did leave off the apnea threshold, but can we assume that the apnea threshold still begins at about 1.3?
1.3 to 3.3, yes.
All right. And based on this particular simulation, can you show us where you would expect an apnea event?
In a patient who had had no other medications, the risk would be here. But it would be a low risk because in the absence of other medications, the apnea threshold, it remains below the apnea threshold.
Here being?
My apologies, Your Honor. Here being around 4 to 5 minutes.
So the apnea threshold, and I believe you testified last week that it's the brain that matters, right?
Correct.
And now the brain, the apnea threshold, the brain curve that we have here, which is the dark red curve, right? The solid red curve.
The effect site curve is the dark red curve, yes.
Is below the apnea threshold.
Correct.
So you would not expect apnea to occur under these circumstances.
In the absence of other medications, no.
All right. And we're going to get to that, I promise. Now, when you prepared, I'm going to go back to this 50 milligram, which is Defense HHH. When you prepared this, did you have some information, some evidence from the scene, some hypothesis about use of 50 milligrams, or you just choose that to demonstrate something?
I had evidence from Dr. Murray's interview.
Okay. And can you be more specific about that?
Dr. Murray talked about mixing lidocaine with Propofol 1-to-1. And so there was a 10 cc, 10 milliliter syringe. So this would represent a 10 milliliter syringe that was half filled with Propofol and half filled with lidocaine.
And so you hypothesized the possibility of the entire 10 cc syringe being pushed in.
That is correct.
Okay. And that would include 50 cc's of lidocaine, 50 of Propofol.
Correct.
And in this particular scenario, it wouldn't have been the 3 to 5 minutes that Dr. Murray said. It would have been immediate push.
That's how the simulation was done.
Right. Now, in this particular simulation, let's assume, let's go back to what Dr. Murray. Let's stay with this particular scenario. Now, Dr. Murray did not tell the police that he injected 50 milligrams. Is that right?
I would have to refer back to the... Oh, in terms of that day, that is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
Okay. Now, if, in fact, Dr. Murray had pushed in rapidly this 50 milligrams, then you would expect, as you've testified, any apnea event to occur within those 2 minutes.
My only hesitation in saying yes, generally I would say yes, is that the pharmacological state of Michael Jackson is so unclear to me because of the long history of drugs that he's received, getting Propofol every night. In a patient who was pharmacologically naive, absolutely I would expect apnea. In Mr. Jackson's case, it's harder to have that level of certainty because there's very little, almost no precedent for this amount of Propofol exposure. But for the purposes of your question, sir, yes.
Okay. And Dr. Murray would have been, of course, there during that period of time under your hypothetical.
Yes.
To observe this apnea event.
Yes.
In this particular defense exhibit EEE, even assuming the unlikely event of apnea, which you've already testified would be unlikely and you wouldn't expect.
In the absence of other drugs, that is
Right.
correct.
For 5 minutes, this would be infused under your scenario here, and Dr. Murray, of course, would be present during that period of time. Right?
Yes.
Apnea event that would occur would either occur, it would have to occur at some point while Propofol was actually in Michael Jackson's system. Is that right?
I don't understand the question.
Let me re-ask the question. Let me go back and re-ask it. Under Dr. Murray's, under the analysis you did of what Dr. Murray gave Michael Jackson here, at what point would this Propofol no longer be any danger whatsoever?
Certainly by 10 minutes, the levels have dropped to the point that there should not be a risk of further complication. The risk period is around 5 to 6 minutes when the levels of Propofol in the brain are at their highest levels.
And we see actually in your in the graph that you did. All right, let me see what I can do here. In the graph that you did for the FDA insert, we see that general proposition. We see here that this bottom line here represents a 1 hour infusion, right?
Yes.
And it drops off. Here you can see very rapidly after 1 hour.
Yes.
Less than 10 minutes.
Yes.
And we see here this second line is a 10-hour infusion. Literally, it's 10 hours of Propofol for 10 solid hours. Right?
Yes.
It further drops off.
Yes.
Even a 10-day infusion drops off over a relatively short period of time.
That is correct.
And really, the only reason that it drops off slower than the other examples is because of some diffusion that goes through the body. Is that right?
The word I would use is accumulation.
Accumulation through the bodily tissues.
Yes.
Is that right? But even a 10-day is going to drop off rather rapidly.
Yes.
Okay. So, can I see?
There's 6 injections of 50.
I'm going to mark these as Defense Exhibit I and J.
Triple I, triple J.
And then we have the cell as well. I've got it. And I have K as well, Judge.
Triple kilo.
I think there's
This is actually triple K. It doesn't look like it, but that's what it is. This is an example a simulation that you put together. One of the many different simulations that you did for Mr. Walgren that you showed this couldn't have happened. Remember that whole testimony?
Yes, I do.
This particular simulation, which is marked as Defense KKK, shows 6 self-injections at 50 milligrams each.
Yes.
Was there any evidence that was presented to you or any analysis presented to you that led you to come up with this particular simulation?
Just the hypothetical that was their self-injection, which I believe I read in the letter prepared by Dr. White, that there had been self-injection. So that's why I explored this as an alternate acid hypothesis.
One of the things that I had asked you on Friday was about a computer program that would determine dose from concentration, and you said there would be infinite number of possibilities.
Yes.
And here we have, in this particular scenario, which you showed to the jury and said, well, this didn't happen. You have 6 injections, right?
Yes.
Did you have any information whatsoever from the evidence at the scene or statements or witnesses or even from Mr. Walgren which led you to believe that 6 was a particularly important number?
No.
You could have used 8?
Yes.
10?
The time course, depending on the size of the dose, the time course would have changed, but we can simulate an arbitrary number.
You didn't have any of that, any information about 6 injections at 50 milligrams with regard. This is JJJ, Your Honor.
Triple J. And if we could go a little closer to the mic, it'd help us out, Mr. Chernoff. Thank you. It's triple Juliet.
This is triple J. And also you had no information at your disposal that Dr. Murray would have given 6 injections either.
Correct.
Or for that matter, 50 milligrams each.
Correct.
And once again, these injections are also rapid bolus injections.
Correct.
Now, we have established that Dr. Murray said he gave a 3 to 5 minute injection, right?
Correct.
You have testified that that is a recommendation you would make.
Correct.
Right? You would agree that a professional, a medical professional who's giving Propofol should initially provide a rather slow bolus.
Correct.
And that the reason for that is because of the danger of apnea and hypotension?
Yes.
In all of your simulations, you have shown a rapid bolus, right?
Yes.
Including the ones by Dr. Murray, right?
Yes.
But there is a circumstance, you would agree, where you would expect a rapid bolus?
You'll have to give me more information.
Well, you are familiar with rare occurrences of healthcare providers who have died from propofol use.
Yes, we've published such cases in anesthesia and analgesia.
Yes, I've seen those. And you have shown us in this.
Excuse me for a moment. The last exhibit really is triple Lima. I think I used Juliet twice. The exhibit, you had KKK, and then you had another one you...
JJJ, and then I have
Well, the
II.
JJJ I'd already marked once before. This was a new one, wasn't it? Or not?
I think it was new.
Would it be triple Lima then?
No, I have I, J, and K. Is all
Okay,
marked.
I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't another one out there.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm going to show you KKK again. This is 6 injections, 50 milligrams each. One of the things you took into account with KKK with regard to self-injections is you can't expect anyone to inject it when they're asleep. And
Correct.
so you actually have an awake line at about 0.5.
Yes.
Now, you would agree that that Propofol is unique in that, I don't know if elimination is the right word to use, help me out here, but the clinical effect drops off very quickly once you stop using it, right?
That is correct.
And also it works very quickly,
That is correct.
within 40 seconds.
Depending on dose, correct. The peak effect is typically 90 seconds after a bolus injection.
If an individual was self-injecting, he really is not going to have 3 to 5 minutes to do that.
No, if the person is self-injecting as a bolus, they need to get it in pretty quickly. You can have the 100 milligram. The last simulation you did, and I may be... Now I'm going to go to L, Judge. Is that right?
Triple Lima?
Yes. The 100 milliliter. There it is. Yeah, that's it. The last example you gave, or simulation that you did, which is I'm going to mark as LL.
Some
LLL.
of the juries are confused.
Yeah. I'm going to let me get back to I. I'm sorry about that.
You're on top of it.
Thank you very much. I did forget that.
We had something marked as triple I. We never got to it.
Yeah.
So we're right now at triple L.
Okay, so let me go to triple I. This is the...
Oh, now we're going. Okay. we're
Okay,
at
well,
triple
they're right. I did forget this. This is Murray, 6 injections at 50 milligrams each, right?
Yes.
And once again, to establish that, we're talking about rapid bolus here, right?
Yes.
And we're talking about, you just chose 6 in this case,
Correct.
right? And 50 milligrams, that would equate to about 30 milliliters. 50 milligrams, 6 injections, you'd need about 30 milliliters, right?
Correct.
And there was no evidence at the scene that only 30 milliliters was used.
Yes, that is correct.
You just chose all this. I don't want to. You chose this on your out of thin air. You chose this exam, right?
Yes.
Okay. And that's III. Now let me show you LLL. This is the last example you gave. And once again, we have 6 injections, right?
Yes.
Once again, you chose that out of thin air, right?
Yes.
100 milligrams, right?
Yes.
Rapid bolus.
Yes.
Now, you you even testified that you just would never even see this. This is not even something you'd ever see.
Correct.
And so you took this simulation and you showed the jury and you said, well, this didn't happen, although nobody really ever suggested that it happened.
The suggestion that it was based on was that there were multiple self-injections, but there was no other detail. And that was just simply a hypothetical put forward by Dr. White.
So this, you not only, in the grand scheme of things, this is something you would never expect to happen, self-injections anyway, right?
Correct.
Ask him to point out.
Would you I want to talk about, I want to go and maybe kind of go back to this model and see if we can't use some of your information, some of your knowledge to help us with some issues. You said, I believe on direct, that there was, or maybe it was cross, but you said that Lorazepam had a half-life in the stomach of 20 minutes?
22 is the number that I used.
And this is from Goldblatt? Is that what
This
you
is
said?
from Dr. Greenblatt.
Greenblatt, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Dr. Greenblatt. Now, Dr. Greenblatt actually, he talked about what is first order half-life?
First order half-life means that a certain fraction of drug gets removed in the same period of time. Let me try to explain that better. In the case of 22 minutes, it means every 22 minutes, the amount of drug in the stomach is cut in half. So if you start off with 16 milligrams, 22 minutes later, it's 8. And 22 minutes after that, it's 4. And 22 minutes after that, it's 2. And 22 minutes after that, it's 1. So every 22 minutes, the amount of drug in the stomach is cut in half. And that's the number that I used in the analysis.
Now, Dr. Greenblatt actually said that the first order half-life for Lorazepam in his study was 15 minutes with lag time. Is that right?
No, the study that I'm referring to is Greenblatt 1977. There were 2 half-lives, one of 22 minutes for the 4 milligram dose. The 2 milligram dose, I think, had a mean half-life of 40 minutes. But because the 4 milligram is more representative of 16, it's closer to 16 than 2, I took the shorter half-life, which is the more conservative estimate.
Your analysis of the half-life of Lorazepam in the stomach is based then on a 40-minute time period or 22 minutes?
22 minutes.
22 minutes. Well, if one were to help me understand this, okay, work with me on this. If I, for instance, all things being equal, if I were to take a 2 milligram Lorazepam, what would happen, and I swallowed it orally, what would happen in 22 minutes? What would that represent?
Ignoring the 15-minute lag time, which is approximately the number that was in the paper, I'd have to look at the paper, it's about 15-minute lag time, but ignoring that, 22 minutes after you take the 2 milligram dose, it would be 1 milligram left in the stomach.
Okay, and another 22 minutes?
Half milligram.
Half a milligram. And then, I guess, another 22 minutes? Quarter milligram?
Quarter milligram.
And on and on.
Yes.
If I were, or if a particular individual were to take 8 milligrams of Lorazepam, I don't want to put you on the spot, but help me out. What would you expect to find in the stomach, free Lorazepam, as a result 4 hours later?
8 milligrams, I'm sorry? Or
8 milligrams.
8 milligrams of Lorazepam, I can get close to that number. You would expect to find, in terms of the free Lorazepam, Lou Shiner said never do math in front of an audience. I believe it's going to be about 125th of a tablet, but I would always love to check this with my computer, and I can do that if you'd like me to. But I believe it's on that order.
Well, let's see if we can. I was an English major, okay, so you're gonna have to help me, all right? Let's start, and let's see if this is the process you would go through at least, okay?
Mm-hmm.
We start with 8 milligrams, okay, in this example, and you're saying that 22 minutes later it would be 4,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, that is correct.
Another 22 minutes, we're at 2.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Another 22 minutes, and I'm not going to belabor
One.
this, but and it's
No, this is perfect. This is exactly the way to do it.
this is
Nature shadow, though, over the
yeah.
exhibit.
Let me see if I can. That's still not good, but it's as good as I. It's like basically you just keep having it until ultimately you would not be surprised to expect in 4 hours a very, very, very small amount of free lorazepam in the stomach.
That is correct.
Now, 2
Do you
hours.
want that marked as triple mic?
Okay, Judge. I'm gonna.
It's up
Yes,
to you.
yes. I'm gonna. I do. I'm gonna go and add to this though, if that's.
Triple mic.
Now, it's the same as true of 16 milligrams of oral lorazepam.
Yes, at 60 milligrams, you would just double all of the numbers all the way down.
And really, the only difference between 16 milligrams and 8 milligrams in the whole analysis is 22 minutes.
Correct.
Just an additional 22 minutes would equate for the same number as 8 and 16 in the stomach.
Correct.
One of the things that you said. Now let us go further than that, and what I want to talk about is what you did or did not do with regard to lorazepam in this particular case. I know that you worked backwards and gave us that one hypothetical. We've addressed that, okay? Did you at any point take the dose of lorazepam that was found in the femoral blood, or any dose of lorazepam, and work forwards to the concentration? Let me rephrase the question. I can see you're confused. When you talk about concentration, you're not talking just about blood concentration, right?
In the case of lorazepam, I just looked at blood concentration.
But there are other concentrations. Well, there's
tissues and urine, is that what you're referring to? Yes.
Stomach concentration,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And part of what you do with pharmacokinetics is look at many different types of concentrations.
That's correct.
Okay. What would you, based on the analysis that you made, of the amount we know that Greenblatt in doing his studies determined that 2 milligrams lorazepam reaches a peak concentration of between 90 to 120 minutes, something like that?
Yes.
Okay. Can you explain to us what that means, peak concentration?
Yes. There are two things going on simultaneously. This is following oral dose, I'm assuming.
Of course.
Following oral dose, there are two things going on. You have drug going in to the system from the stomach. And you also have the liver removing drug, and the drug also moving into body tissues. So drug is going in from the stomach, and drug is also being removed from the plasma, from the blood, by the liver or by distribution into tissues. And those two processes, in a sense, play off against each other. Initially, there's no drug being removed because there is no drug. It's just going in. Once there's a fairly high concentration, then the rate at which drug is removed is faster. The net effect of those two processes is that when you take a pill, initially the concentrations will rise. They'll reach a peak. And after the peak, the rate of drug removal is faster than the rate of drug going in. and then the levels fall. So as long as the rate of drug going into the body, into the blood from the stomach, is faster than the rate that the drug is being removed, as long as it's faster, the levels are increasing. But once it's being removed faster than it's going in, at that point the levels start to fall. It's the relative rate of going in and coming out that determines, are you on the way up, are you at the peak, or are you at the fall. At the peak, the rate of drug going in exactly matches the rate of drug going out. And that's why it's the peak. So 2 minutes, so about 2 hours is where the rate of drug going in from the stomach exactly matches the rate at which drug is being removed from the plasma.
And let me show you this. I'm going back to MM. I've added some things. What I've done is I've gone essentially 2 hours into the future. And we see we've got about 0.125.
You know, it's very, very difficult to see. Deputy Jones, can you help out? I don't know why it's plotted that way.
You know what? It's the it's sort of mirroring back on us. Maybe if we turn down the brightness. Let me see. Give me a white paper. Give me a white sheet. Is there anything in the back of that? Okay, thank you. Let me redo this, all right, so we can see it. See, it's not. I don't know if it's going to be better, Judge. What we have. I'm going to make this. Can I make this MMM1? Is that possible? What?
Sure.
I mean, I want to get kind of to the
And I
point.
think, I'm trying to think if you should use a marker as opposed to just a regular pen. It's tough to see it. So
What we've got is 125.
this is MMM sub 1.
At about 2 hours in the stomach. I'm estimating, obviously, because 22 minutes over 6 half-lives is not going to be exactly 2 hours. Is that right?
I would want to actually verify the math myself, but that if you can, I actually could read your other one if you would be so kind as to put it back. Let me take a look.
How'd I do?
I think you did quite nicely. I would say yes, 2 hours and 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 2 hours and 12 minutes. So it's basically 2¼ hours.
All right, and 0.125 in the stomach would equate to a small percentage of 1 pill of Lorazepam. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes. But you would be at peak concentration at that point. Or you would be at, Lorazepam would be at its peak in the blood.
Correct.
One of the things you said in your testimony was that you could not discount the possibility that Michael Jackson woke up, reached up, and turned on or turned off the limiter on the IV site. Is that right?
Correct.
You can also not discount the possibility that Michael Jackson swallowed Lorazepam during the morning either.
I need more information about when to answer that question.
Well, the question is, can you discount that possibility?
The levels of Lorazepam proper push that time to 8 o'clock in the morning. And based upon Lorazepam in the stomach, I can't discount the possibility of swallowing the hypothetical. First, we're talking. My hypothetical is based upon what was proposed, which was 16 milligrams. So I can't get the math to support swallowing 16 milligrams prior to 8 o'clock in the morning.
But you can envision that math. You can envision that possibility.
At 8 o'clock in the morning, based on the stomach levels, that is correct.
All right. Did you, in your analysis, ever determine the concentration of lorazepam in the urine? Did you ever make those numbers available to Mr. Walgren?
Yes, I did.
And that concentration came from analysis that was done by the coroner's office?
The concentration that I used was based on the analysis provided by Pacific Toxicology.
This is the defense.
This is based upon your analysis, yes, sir.
All right. Did you ever make any independent analysis of the lorazepam concentration in the urine?
I don't run an assay lab. I don't have a facility to measure urine, and it would be kind of strange to do so.
Well, actually, you made a request to the coroner's office to, I believe your testimony was, to run the metabolite of lorazepam in blood and all the blood samples. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so you could
yes, I have made that.
Okay.
I did make that request of the coroner that we actually know the details. Yes.
Right. I realize you don't personally go run the gas chromatograph. Okay. Did you do that for the urine with the coroner in this case?
My request was for the stomach contents. Actually, that was the specific request, was to break down what Pacific Toxicology had measured in the stomach, which was both the lorazepam plus the lorazepam glucuronide. My request was to differentiate the two species, to know not just what the metabolite, lorazepam glucuronide plus lorazepam was, but they're actually two separate molecules, and I wanted to know the amount of each one. So that was the request. The request that I made was specifically to know what was in the stomach for the lorazepam and the lorazepam glucuronide.
All right. And was there any analysis done of the urine? Did you do any calculations based on the urine that you had to determine whether or not the concentrations reflected the amounts of lorazepam that had been either orally ingested or administered through an IV?
Yes, I have looked at the urine concentrations from Pacific Toxicology. If you don't mind, I would like to actually know whether the coroner measured the urine lorazepam glucuronide. I would have to look at my notes to see if that was actually measured by the coroner. I don't recall sitting at this moment.
Okay. Do you have your notes handy, or do you have to go to your laptop to do that?
I can actually just pull them out and look at them.
Okay. Please.
I'm not hiding back here. Thank you. I have my notes, including my notes of the analysis by the coroner. I appreciate the moment to find that.
I appreciate you looking.
Glad to.
And you have discovered that they did not do that analysis.
That is correct. They did not look at the urine lorazepam. So the only number that I have for that was measured at your request by Pacific Toxicology.
Okay. And I take it, based on those numbers, you have done an analysis and gone backwards to determine possible dosing regimens as a result?
I have not gone backwards from the urine numbers. I've simply looked at the urine lorazepam content to see if it was consistent with the proposed oral or intravenous dosing paradigm.
Well, the dosing paradigm, the oral dosing paradigm that you're referring to, comes from where?
From you.
Oh, that Michael Jackson might have swallowed lorazepam
Correct.
in any particular amount?
I looked at the projection of the urine lorazepam glucuronide content, both for swallowing 16 milligrams at 8 o'clock in the morning, and swallowing 16 milligrams at 10 o'clock in the morning.
And you had a breakdown of the lorazepam, is it clonaride? Is that right?
Lorazepam glucuronide, yes, sir.
Glucuronide and the free lorazepam. Is that right? No, it's all glucuronide.
In the urine, 99.5% should be the glucuronide metabolite.
You had said in your direct examination that 25%, first of all, it all goes into the liver from the stomach, right?
Correct.
And that 25% winds up in I guess you said the bile ducts, or is that
25% of that goes through the bile duct. That's correct.
And then the rest is eliminated by hepatic conjugation, right? Look, the kidneys. Is that right?
Not exactly correct.
It is chiefly eliminated by hepatic conjugation to inactive metabolites which are excreted by the kidney. Would that be accurate?
That is correct.
A glucuronide conjugate accounts for about 50% of the administered dose. Is that accurate?
According to what Greenblatt wrote, I believe the glucuronide metabolite accounts for over 93%.
You sure about that?
I'll be happy to check the paper, but that's my recollection.
Now, the excretion in the kidneys would be all glucuronide, right? Conjugate.
Yes.
Is that right?
The glucuronide conjugate is almost entirely excreted by the kidneys. If there are other conjugates, they would also be excreted by the kidneys. But the glucuronide is the main metabolite.
You know, the liver, if it works harder, let me ask you, with the process that the liver goes through, the filtering process that the liver involves itself in, the glucuronization, I guess you call it, of drugs,
Yes.
would that be affected by the process of having to metabolize more than one drug?
No, I would not expect that in this particular case.
All right. Now, you are familiar that Propofol also has a metabolite.
A glucuronide metabolite, yes.
It goes through the same process as lorazepam.
Yes.
Did you, at any point in your analysis, make a determination based on your 100 milliliter example, your dosing? Did you make a determination about what you would expect urine concentration to be after those 3 hours?
Of?
Well, let me show you your hypothetical. Can I see the 100 milliliter, please? Nancy, Judge?
Triple November, yes.
This is the example that you showed the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this 100 milliliter infusion. It's marked as NNN, right?
Yes.
You hypothesized a 3-hour infusion, right?
Yes.
With an immediate drop-off, right?
Yes.
Essentially what you hypothesized is that after exactly 3 hours, the bottle ran out.
Yes.
And it turns out that was exactly the time of Michael Jackson's death.
That was the way the simulation was constructed.
Who constructed it?
I did.
So you constructed a simulation where just by chance, that at the exact time that the bottle ran out, Michael Jackson also died.
Yes.
Think that's sort of a coincidence?
No, that was by intent.
All right. Well, let's talk about this infusion theory that you have, after 3 hours, did you make a determination about what you would expect the urine concentration to be?
Of what? What urine concentration of what?
Well, at autopsy, at death.
I don't. You have to tell me what you want.
Okay.
What drug you want to measure in the urine?
Here's Propofol. We're talking about Propofol. At 9 o'clock, you have hypothesized a 3-hour infusion, right?
Yes.
Urine is building up, I'm assuming, in the body at that period of time.
Urine is being created by the kidneys.
Okay. And what did you make a determination as to what you would expect the concentration of urine to be after those 3 hours?
The concentration of what in the urine?
Propofol.
Propofol gluconide.
No, I have not determined the concentration of propofol glucuronide in the urine.
Okay. What would you expect it to be?
I would have to find a model for that in order to make that determination. I wouldn't know on first principles. I'd actually have to find a model of propofol glucuronide in the urine to make that determination.
I suggested that glucuronide conjugate accounts for about 50% of the administered dose.
Of Lorazepam, as I understand your question.
Hepatic conjugation. You suggested that it is flushed out into the urine at about 90% propofol.
May I request a clarification?
Sure.
Are we talking about propofol or are we talking about Lorazepam?
Propofol.
Okay, my comment about 90% was referring to Lorazepam. I don't know the number for propofol.
All right. Well, is there any way for you to quickly find out? For instance, if I were to provide you the FDA insert, would that help?
Well, if you have it on the FDA insert, I'd be happy to look at it.
All right. May I approach?
You may.
This is FFF. Okay, so
the FDA insert says a glucuronide conjugate accounts for about 50% of the administered dose for propofol.
So we're all clear. I think it's triple F. It's not FF.
oh, it's triple F. That's right. How much would you expect to be eliminated? Propofol would you expect to be eliminated into the urine?
I would expect it is a relatively more difficult question to answer because a fair amount of that will first go into the bile. And the question about how much of this is eliminated in the bile as opposed to how much of this is eliminated in the urine, I can't tell from this 50%. So to answer the question would require a little bit of research.
How long would it take you to do that research, Dr. Shafer?
I could do it this evening, I guess.
Would you be surprised to find out? Would it be your 100 milliliter simulation? Would that be inconsistent with 0.15 micrograms per milliliter in the urine after 3 hours?
It actually calls for speculation. So you'd have to do calculations to do that now.
Well, over the objection if you know in general terms. If not, tell us.
Let me say that I would actually have to look at models and give you a precise quantitative answer. I can't take a single number and look at that. It really has to be based on data.
Would you go this far? Would you go so far as to say that the urine that was found after 3 hours, after Michael Jackson's death, could be evidence for or against your 100 milliliter hypothetical? Would you go so far as to say that?
even there, without knowing, without actually having, I don't have a model in my head for propofol glucuronide in the urine, nor do I even know if most of it goes into the urine or most goes into the bile. So I think the appropriate response is to say that without having such a model and familiarity with such a model, I would not be willing to offer an opinion whether it was for or against the hypothetical.
You just don't know.
I just don't have a... That is correct.
You did not do the calculations.
I did not do a calculation of the amount of propofol glucuronide in the urine.
Well, you didn't do the numerical and computer calculations to determine whether the urine concentration at autopsy is consistent with your 100 milliliter example.
I am not aware there was a urine concentration of propofol glucuronide at autopsy. If there was, I missed it, but I'm not aware that that was in the autopsy results.
But you're aware that there was a propofol test of the urine at autopsy.
If you can show me the autopsy numbers, I will be happy to. I'll be happy to assess that. Well, I do not recall whether or not there was a urine propofol measurement at autopsy. I would ask you to actually show me that. If you could, I'd be happy to look at it.
Okay, I'll be happy to show you.
Thank you.
You have seen the autopsy, right?
Yes, I have.
Obviously, you've studied the toxicology results.
Yes.
Right? Are we know?
Triple Oscar.
Okay. Triple O is the summary of positive toxicological findings. You have seen this, Dr. Shafer?
That is correct. I have seen this. Thank you.
You know that there were actually 2 urine samples that were tested, right?
Yes, I'm aware of that.
And one of them was urine that was on the chair in Michael Jackson's residence, right?
I don't know where it was found.
Okay. But you know that at least one of the urine samples was autopsy urine.
Taken from the bladder at autopsy, yes.
During autopsy. So let me ask you, could you, or could any pharmacokineticist or pharmacologist be able to take your 100 milliliter infusion example and determine whether or not the urine found at autopsy is consistent with that?
The number that you've shown me here is not a propofol glucuronide number. It's propofol proper, not the glucuronide.
Well, what if we had the propofol glucuronide? Could we do that?
If you have the propofol glucuronide number, and I have a model that relates the dose to the time course of excretion of propofol glucuronide, then that model could be used to assess the consistency of the number with the dose of propofol that was given.
Okay, that's what I needed to know. Thank you. May I have that?
Of course.
Your analysis, in fact, your entire analysis that you made with the prosecution, all of your simulations, are based on the assumption of a respiratory arrest.
That is correct.
You did not take into consideration a cardiac arrest in your analysis.
That is correct.
One of the things that you mentioned in your report, or actually you discussed in your report, your expert report, was about Michael Jackson's opioid use, his use of Demerol.
Yes.
Do you have any expertise in addiction, doctor?
No.
Have you written at all about addiction or withdrawal or treatment or detox, anything at all?
No.
But you decided to venture an opinion in your report about Michael Jackson's Demerol use?
I take care of patients who are addicts on a very regular basis. And as a trained physician, I've certainly also cared for patients with various types of addiction on a regular basis. So I am familiar with forms of addiction, and I'm familiar with signs of addiction, but I do not consider myself to be an addiction specialist by any means.
But you were willing to venture an opinion about Michael Jackson's Demerol use in your expert report anyway.
Yes.
You knew that would be an issue in this case.
Correct.
And so you said in your report, you thought Michael Jackson just liked Demerol.
Objection. Can I get a line reference?
Do you have a page line? Talking about the report prepared by Dr. Shafer, Mr. Chernoff?
Yes, Judge.
Do you have it? Unless Dr. Shafer has it.
I have it here, sir.
Page 18.
Page 18, the second paragraph from the bottom.
Yes, Judge. You said the records of Dr. Klein show that Jackson liked meperidine.
Yes.
Meperidine is Demerol.
Yes.
But
The effects of opioids. So that under general anesthesia, they are basically put into a state of withdrawal with antidotes for opioids, and they go through full withdrawal in essentially an intensive care unit environment under general anesthesia. I think that's what you're referring to.
that is. So you understand then the dangers of opioid withdrawal as well to the body,
Yes.
in fact to the heart.
Yes, there are dangers to most organ. There are dangers to numerous organ systems from opioid withdrawal.
Doctor, thank you. I'll pass the witness.
Chernoff, thank you. This will be redirect examination by
Thank
the
you, Your
people.
Honor.
Mr.
May we approach, Your Honor?
You may. So we're going to take a little earlier than usual break. So please remember all of the admonitions and follow them to the letter, and we'll buzz you out in about 15 minutes or so. Thank you.